think the sketchy website I bought this turtle from stole.
Hello, Mayor Dude. How you doing out there, man? How are you doing? Glad to see you showing up. Stick around here for a minute or two until we get, people a chance to pop in. Just a bit. Proverbial question every week, Mr. Mayor Dude. Did the stork bring the airbrush? Is it here yet? Talon Games. Who are you? You're a new face around here. Just teasing. Oh, not as bright. You talking about the oranges? I went in and did a little. It's on. We got shipping notification, Mayor Dude. Those are basically airbrush contractions. Yeah, Talon Games. It's been forever. I'm telling you what, that disc golf game almost killed me. I've been sore for the last day and a half. Ilmarin, glad to see you, man. Glad to see you hanging out. Going to do a little bit of work on the Cossack tonight, and then I get this mysterious pile of stuff over here. This pile of goodness, which you can't see for all the shiny plastic, but we're going to break this out like at the end of the stream and just tinker with it. This is my virtual CavCon list in plastic. Maybe we'll talk about that for a minute or two and see what we know about that. Outlaws. Yes, Talon Games. Outlaws. Outlaws and poltergeists and 2 razors and 2 shadows. Just keeping it simple. For those of you who may not utilize our Discord or maybe Facebook or even the Reaper Cav forums, the Cav forum on the Reaper. I don't even know what to call it. The place where we post Cav stuff over on the Reaper forums. Ross, Todd, Hugh, and I have been starting to work on our upcoming virtual CavCon lists and, brainstorming them, thinking about them, designing them. Hugh is doing some amazing kit bashing, which you can see some pictures up over on the Discord channel. I invite you to come and talk and look and ask questions and give critiques and just, participate in it. This is... So the very first time I ever went to CavCon, I didn't know too many other Cav players. There were a couple in Tulsa, but they were just busy, didn't have time to hang out with me. So I got a friend of mine who's into that other game to come and test, test games with me and talk about stuff. And so this is the virtual version of that. So instead of me and my buddy hanging out and drinking tea and coffee and whatnot, going to breakfast and then hitting the local FLGS and playing tabletop games and trying things out and posting about it. This was us doing the exact same thing. I mean, if we all lived in the same area, we would get together and talk about our lists and brainstorm and, just say, hey, how, I'd ask you, how are you going to handle ECM? And you'd ask me how I was going to penetrate heavy armor. And, we'd get into the nitty gritty of the lists. And then, I'd ask you, do you like this orange? Or, what kind of purple should I put on my Malvernus guys? That kind of stuff. And since we can't do that right now because of this dumb COVID thing, this is what we do instead. Monday nights for an hour here together, me and you. So let us get started. So I have done a little bit of work on this here Cossack. I have worked on the oranges since the last time we talked. I have come in and I've added, I decided to pick out these little panels here on the side of this turret in orange on both sides. And then I've come through and done a little bit of highlighting with some yellows. I'm not sure you can really pick it out, but I took this, I happen to have this golden color, which I really like. Golden is a more of a traditional artist brand of paints. You find them at, places like Dick Blick or stuff like that. And I really like these because these are super transparent. I mean, they're label transparent. And this is an example of this swatch, right? You can see right through this paint to the stuff underneath. And so I know when I paint this stuff, it's going to come out of the bottle basically like a glaze. And it's kind of related to my orange a little bit. And then I picked out another golden paint, also fairly transparent, to kind of make the highlight of my orange with. And so then I came in here and I did just a little bit of, I took this red iron oxide and I came in here and I glazed it. Let's see if I can get it to the point where you can see. I glazed it into here to kind of draw this color down just a little bit right through here. Everywhere it would be a little bit darker underneath at the base of these things. I put some of the glaze here underneath these I don't know, nasals or sponsons or whatever these things here are on the side. And then I took the yellow, which is, again, is fairly transparent, and I mixed it with some of the base orange, this Reaper orange. And I came in and I just basically applied the paint and I pulled it towards the place where I wanted to have the brighter stuff. So when I put this umber on this square right here, again, I wish this was a better camera. But what I did is I took this umber very thin as a glaze, and I basically started here and I pushed it into the corner, basically so that the paint would accumulate in the areas that it needed to be darker. And then I did the reverse with the highlight. I basically very lightly pulled it from the center over to here. And then, you know, like this one right here has got a little, it's hard for you guys to see, but there's a little bit of a sharp line right here between the yellow and the red iron oxide. And so if I need to, I can make a glaze out of this and come in and kind of fuzz that line back out so it's got a smoother transition. And the same sort of thing here. And if I find at the end of the day that this is too much yellow in here, I can just, again, glaze it back over with this orange and pull it back into the realm of orange. But so far, I'm okay with that. Again, I'm not trying to paint like an award-winning model here, just something decent enough to play with and maybe take a picture of. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, so that's where we are. So I kind of got the oranges to the point where I'm happy with them. Gave it some tail lights. I don't know, I'm probably going to knock those down a little bit. Picked out this little tiny piece there for some crazy reason. Just decided I needed that little bit to be orange. But now I've got to do something similar to this green. And that's actually kind of challenging, all right? So I don't know if you remember, but I basically took these two Vallejo Model Air colors, olive green and Middlestone. And initially I airbrushed the thing olive green, and then I made a highlight of that with these two colors and came back in and did some very gentle sort of barely catching these edges at a high angle to keep from washing out all of my bluish greens down in here. But now what I want to do is I kind of want to do the same sort of thing I did with these oranges to this. And so to that end, I brought in this Reaper paint, Dirty Bone. And you can see it's kind of related. And related is probably the wrong word. It's like a non-white highlight. And so I didn't want to go straight to white because once you go to white, there's nowhere else to go. Running lights. Hey, Cthulhu, glad to see you. Gunnar Fox. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Ross is the person that came up with the combination of colors, Ross Hines. But I am the one that put them on the miniature, amazingly enough. But yeah, so my idea is to try and lighten like these leading edges, you know, try and give this, let me get this back up here where we can see it. I want to use this highlight to try and give this a sense of roundness. So by painting kind of like a little crescent moon of a highlight right here, and the same thing on this barrel maybe, you know, we would normally get like a glisten if this were shiny at all. It doesn't have to be shiny, but I think I'm going to kind of try and make mine a little bit shiny. And it is a little bit already, but I'm hoping to put just a little tiny bit of a highlight down the length of this barrel, kind of in a line, but a fuzzy line, because I don't want it to be a sharp, this is not a particularly shiny gun barrel, so I don't want it to have a crisp edge of a highlight. I want to make something kind of soft looking, sort of like, you know, by just making a line with comprised of vertical lines, kind of shaped like that. At least that's my theory. I could also, you know, I've got some green stuff around here. If it doesn't work out, I know how to fix it. But But yeah, that's kind of what I'm going to work on tonight. This guy's pretty close, I think, to being done by my standards. There's a tiny few places here where I've gotten a little bit of the orange into the gray. I need to go in and clean those up. And I need to ask Cav Boss if he wants me to try and put like an Almirethal decal or something like that on here, or maybe freehand some sort of Almirethal symbol. I've got some scimitars that have a... I wish I'd thought to bring one up here, but I didn't. I've got some scimitars that have got a hatch about this size. And what I did with them is on half of the hatch, I painted a fleur-de-lis by hand. And that kind of came out all right. But I don't know. I don't know what he wants. I'll let him decide. He'll tell me do whatever, and I don't know. I'll end up winging it or getting you lot to tell me what to do with it. So that's where we are tonight. And then, like I said, a little bit later, we're going to pull out some, we'll just pull one out right now. This is a sexy, sexy outlaw. Look at this guy, ready to send doom and agony, despair on me, downrange at people that stand around in one spot too long. And then I got some poltergeists and some other stuff over there, but we'll get to that in a minute. It's like Christmas. I'm actually kind of excited to drag that stuff out, but we'll hold off on that for a minute. The other thing I would really encourage you guys to take, and I know Cthulhu's been doing this, although he probably didn't have this in mind. Cthulhu recently finished up his a Templar force. It's kind of hard to describe, kind of blue and white, maybe some silver, like it's a camo pattern. It looks really good. There are pictures of it he's posted up around, so you can go find those if you want over on the Discord. But I encourage you all, let's make this virtual CavCon like a real CavCon. Get out your models, pick out your, go make up a list. Come and chat with us on the Discord. Hit us up on Facebook. Talk to us on the Reaper forums, wherever your preferred place is. Ask questions here on Wednesday, just wherever you want. Let's, make a list, get it put together, tweak it, paint it, so that, we can all feel like we did something, and then maybe cross our fingers. There we go, crossed fingers. Maybe this fall, there might actually be a CavCon, a real physical CavCon. Or if not, maybe next year. And then we've got these armies that we have fully painted and we're ready to play. There's none of that last minute, oh my gosh, I got to hurry up and get this army finished. No, because we did that all prior to virtual CavCon. So, all right, so let's get back to some painting. So I tinkered with trying to come up with a highlight. All right, so this is something I struggle with. So this is this sort of brush highlighting that I've done down here in this oranges. This is not actually my cup of tea. I'm not particularly good at it nor practiced at it. And I really like the soft, gentle changing colors I got across this armor plate here from the airbrush. I kind of wish I'd pushed it up just a little bit higher. If I had, then I might not be trying to do this because I would be like, oh, that's pretty good. But now what I've got to try and do is I've got to try and come in and somehow add a level of highlight on top of this smooth airbrush transition that doesn't just look like poop. And I'm not 100% sure I can do that, but we're going to find out. All right, so I got out my three colors. Got me some olive green by Vallejo, some middle stone by Vallejo, and this here dirty bone from Reaper, and some glazed medium. Glazed medium is the stuff of legends. Should always have some. It's very useful. And I made up this really kind of super pale, super thin. See if I can show you what this really looks like. Just really delicate little light green. I mean, it's like dirty dishwater. That's about how much pigment that contains, all right? And the reason for that is because I want to build up these highlights subtly, because that's what the airbrush does. It makes a very subtle transition, and I got to do something that works in there. And if I come in too strong, it'll be really hard to put it back, to go back and repaint. I mean, I'd probably have to pull the airbrush back out and try and find a way to put the transition back in with the airbrush. So I want to go slow and put these layers on very delicately, I guess is maybe the right word. And so I've kind of tinkered with that right here, right before the stream came on. I took this pale pea green or whatever color you want to call that. And I'm really, I mean, this is one of the reasons why I'm not particularly good at this, is that this painting, this kind of painting, it, at least the way I do it, it's so subtle. It's like nothing is happening. And then I get impatient and I start putting more and more on. And the next thing you know, I've messed it up. Now, there are, and this is really glazing. All right. So I'm just building up layers and layers of very subtle glaze. All right. Layering is the fast way of doing something like this, I think. And that's something that Ross is super good at. I would love to get Ross to give me a class in layering and just his cockpits and things like that when I get a chance. We have not had that chance so far. So really what I'm doing just now is I'm just kind of going along and I'm putting a tiny little bit of this glaze wherever I think there might be like a highlight, like where the light would hit and cause a little glimmer. Oh, that was a mess. All right, too much liquid. But again, it's such a tiny change that I can just mop it up with that brush that's kind of dry. Anyway, so like I'm basically just going anywhere where I want there to be like a transition. So like this rounded piece right here should have a little bit of a crescent moon look to it to try and bring out the shadow or the highlights. And importantly, just as importantly, for the highlights to look like anything, they've got to have dark colors right next to them too. And so probably what I'll do is after I glaze this all in, I will come back with some oil wash. And I will come back in and reinforce like the separations. I don't know if you can see this. But right here on the edge of this thing right here, there's like 3 separate pieces right here. And ideally, I need a black line to help draw them out. And that's what the oil wash will do. It'll do it for free. It's not about my hand and my ability to paint in some tiny little straight line. Instead, it's really about the ability of the wash to go in the places I want it to go, kind of for free. All right. So like I said, and then the idea is you just kind of build up more and more of this glaze, more and more towards the tip of where you want the brightest highlight to be. And as you go along, eventually you'll get like a buildup, 2 or 3 different layers of that glaze that'll start to become a tiny little bit opaque, and then you'll start to see a highlight. All right. So let's try and put some of this. Let me see. I think there should be a little bit of a highlight right there. It's too wet. That's too much of that stuff in my brush. Maybe a tiny little bit down this edge. And like I said, you got to be careful not to destroy the existing shadows, or you're just going to have to go back in and rebuild them. Because the way you really create a highlight is to create contrast between light and shadow. All right, now here I'm going to go in and I'm just going to glaze in, this sort of cylindrical highlights you would see if you were looking at, a shiny piece of metal, a shiny tube of aluminum or steel or something. It would have a little bit of like a diffuse edge highlight going down the length of it. And here's the part I really don't want to mess up because I really love this gradient on this front piece of armor, subtle as it is. So I just want to pick it up a little tiny bit all along the top here. So we got to chit chat because this has absolutely got to be the most boring kind of painting to take a look at in the world, because the changes that are happening here are really minuscule. Like, until I've done it 3 or 4 times, I have trouble seeing that there's any transition, and I'm standing here looking at it with my own 2 eyes, let alone trying to watch it across, Twitch, maybe on a mobile phone or something. Like I said, I'm just building up like the faintest layers of this glaze. Or, that's cool. You guys can eat dinner. That's fine. Do whatever it is you're doing. I will just sit here and pretend like I'm actually doing something. This is sort of like that story with the Emperor's New Clothes, where the Emperor is really running around in the buff, and everybody agrees, oh, your clothes are magnificent, Emperor, the best we've ever seen, except the little kid. He's like, this guy's naked. Does nobody see this but me? That's really what I'm doing. I'm not really doing anything. I'm just touching water to the thing, waiting for you guys to go, oh, look, great looking clothes. Right? Bueller? Bueller? Anybody out there? So I went up and saw a cab boss this weekend. Went up and visited him in El Dorado, Kansas. It's about a 3-ish hour drive from where I live. Went up there and hung out with him. We talked about some ideas for virtual CavCon. We talked about, just things that are coming up, things that I'm not entitled to say to you, but I think you're going to be very excited about. He was working on a model. Make sure I say this accurately. A very large model that I had never seen before. There's nothing inaccurate in that statement, so I feel comfortable that I have said nothing I can be, hung for. Still got the stream running, I think. Oh, yeah. Doing more of those, what are they, protectors? What are they called? Ilmarin? What's the name of that group? And I'm not really complaining. I got to make noise. Otherwise people will be like, well, I stopped by this stream and it was somebody with really fat fingers running dirty dishwater across a tank. I'm not sure what the purpose was. Some kind of strange soundless ASMR or whatever that stuff is. So John and I got to go play a game of disc golf. Adon Pinkertons. I like it. You just need some sort of high-tech stagecoach or train for you guys to investigate who robbed the Terran mail off of the stage or the train or whatever device you choose to do. Dropzone Commander did a train a long time ago. You could probably still find it. Sort of a maglev train model for their 10mm sci-fi game. Would look pretty sweet on a cav table. But yeah, so John and I went and played some disc golf. John is a golfer, but I don't know that he had ever played disc golf before. And I've only recently took up the hobby. I won't call it a sport because I am way too unathletic to do anything to the level of sport. And man, I don't know what it was about that course, but it killed me, man. I have been sore. My chest muscles, my shoulder muscles, they're just like, you're an old man. You should stop this. What is wrong with you? That's basically what my body is saying to me today. It's like, you are dumb. So some of this really should be edge highlighting. Like these little pieces right here on the edge of these running lights or whatever John called them, they're too small for me to really glaze in a meaningful way. So I should really make a thicker version of this paint and come in and edge highlight them, which I probably will. And so when you're painting, when you're creating these kind of individual highlights, the idea, at least in my head, is to pick out where the brightest reflections are. And so the brightest reflections, you're going to paint those up a little higher. So like, I feel like this curve, this armor should be fairly bright, this corner here. And then since the light is coming this way, the same thing should apply to this armor plate. And so I'm trying to build up a fairly bright, relatively bright highlight. Everywhere there's a fairly, a spot where the metal, even though it's painted green, it would still be a little reflective. A spot where the light would catch and create a ting, like the brightest highlight that's available in this particular thing. And at the same time, now you can make up anything you want to explain the differences. But I mean, both parts of this tank, this orange and this green, should really be experiencing, for the most part, the same kind of light. And so if they're the same kind of material, they should have similar kinds of highlights, similar kinds of reflections. I think, in the words of Kenny Boucher, I am not a light scientist. I don't really know much about this stuff. I just kind of makes sense to me it would work that way. But I could easily be wrong. Easily be wrong. And so, like I said, generally what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to start the paint here and pull it back here so that it pools up here where I want the brightest highlights. And then these little translucent bits right out here are just to kind of soften the transitions between that existing green that I've already airbrushed on there and these highlights that I'm trying to create. But if we ever happen to, any of you and I end up in physically the same space, Cyberpunk would call it meat space, I think. If we ever end up in the same space, remind me, I'll show you some pictures from John and I's disc golf game that are there's nothing inappropriate about them, but they're fairly unique. I'm not sure these kind of pictures exist anywhere else. Never seen John demonstrating his athletic prowess in quite this way before anywhere ever. All right, so we'll try another subject, see if we can catch your attention. So we're brainstorming ideas for Virtual CavCon, and I think we're going to have an alternative game mode to try out. Something kind of frivolous, not anything serious. We're certainly not going to see any tournaments for this game mode. But I think we may have an opportunity to see a new way to play Cav demonstrated, and I'm pretty sure we're going to play a game of it. Not quite sure what to call it yet, and I haven't got the rules quite hammered out. It's a variation on something I think existed way back in Cav 1 or whatever that thing is called, that original version of Cav. And you'll all recognize it once you see basically what it is. Should be fun. I tried to get John to commit to some stuff for it, and I think he did, but I'm just not going to say, oh, and John's going to make peanut butter cookies for everybody. I don't want to be that guy. So I will wait for John to make those kind of announcements. He's got a show or two on this week. Let him have something to decide to reveal. But I'm excited for it. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Get to roll some dice. Maybe get some audience participation from the Twitch chat while we're playing this particular variation of the game. And we'll see where it goes from there. Should be a lot of fun. All right, those are starting to come up a little tiny bit. Hunt the Rhino. Hunt the Rhino. Yeah, Cthulhu. If we have any prizes left over from the last time you smashed in and grabbed everything, I'm sure we'll be giving out something. But yeah, it'll be a fun little game. There'll be a chance for you to spend those channel points maybe that you have in a way that will influence the outcome of the game. Yeah, I get it, Elmer. No problem. Hey, I do the same thing to John on Tuesdays. I'll pop into his terrain stream and he'll say, nobody's saying anything. You all aren't listening. I'm like, John, I'm here. I'm concentrating to try to paint this tiny eyeball on this minuscule, tiny goblin halfling werewolf. And, it's just hard for an old man like me to do that and chit chat at the same time. But John knows that, I think. All right, we're starting to get a little transition there. All right, we're going to save the last, 10, maybe 15 minutes for me to chit-chat about my virtual CavCon force. You guys are going to get so tired of hearing about this thing. And maybe get some paint scheme opinions for you guys. So the one thing I am trying to do is, John has asked me to paint some models up for the Journal of Recognition, which is very flattering. You've been around here anytime, you know that I consider myself, I'm just a regular guy. I'm just a hobbyist that's been at it maybe a smidgen longer than some of the people in the chat. And so it's an honor for John to suggest that any of my paint jobs might be worth putting in a book. But so long story short, John needs JOR models painted, and so I picked one that I thought I liked the look of, and I said, okay, I'll include this in my virtual CavCon list, and it can be a JOR model, and then I'm killing two birds with one stone. So not only am I painting up an army, I'm also painting up a JOR model. And so that's my strategy. And if I recall the paint scheme that Ross, in his infinite wisdom, decided needed to be painted for these guys was purple and yellow, purple with yellow secondary and maybe some black accents, I think. Now, I say that playfully because Ross is the one that picked out this color combination. And honestly, it seems to me like it's working out halfway decent. So I am never going to question Mr. Hines again. I just made a play on words and I didn't even realize it. Ross, so there's a model that's not out yet that Ross is trying to include in his virtual CavCon list called the Hind, I believe. Cthulhu, 81,000. You want purple and yellow P. dot camo? I'm not sure that works. I mean, I'm terrified to even think about doing something like that. Maybe it works. I don't know. All right. Oh yeah, there's two sides to this model. I should probably come over here and do a few highlights. Now this side of the model is in much deeper shadow, right? So I'm not going to let this build up. Like right here, you can kind of see where I've got almost like a quartered, like this half diagonal of this square is bright and that half diagonal is dark. And what I'll do is after that dries and I see how big the difference is, I'll come in with something and kind of break that line up so it looks like a little smoother transition. But over here on this side, I mean, I've really got the same exact thing, but this is in deep shadow. So I want there to be some color here, but I don't want it to look like this because it just doesn't make sense. So I'm not sure what to do here. Probably I'm going to clean out my brush. Step 1. Oh yeah. Here's this little, obviously everybody's got their own idea about what to do with paint things. Let me grab one of these from over here on the side. So we have a party store. I forget what it's like, but it sells kids party stuff and, just all kinds of party supplies, costumes and, banners and balloons and stuff like that. Well, they sell, for some strange reason, I have no idea why anybody would need these, but they sell like giant packs of shot glasses, like disposable shot glasses. I use them to mix airbrush paints in and to put paint water and stuff like that. But you can get, 60 of them for like, $4 or $5 or something like that. And they're just super useful. And when I'm done, if they get too filthy, I just throw them away. I don't feel bad about it. Or recycle them, rather, I guess. These are, I'm not sure. The other ones I had are definitely recyclable. This is a new brand. I'm not sure about this one. Anyway, so that's a little trick that I picked up and I really like. And especially, if I'm trying to paint something super delicate through the airbrush, especially if it's a chalky paint, like a white paint, I really need the paint to be as clean as possible. And so instead of mixing the paint in the cup of the airbrush, I'll mix it in here, and then I can sort of almost decant. I mean, literally, I can come in here with a pipette. Oh yeah, I'm on screen. And I can just take off the very top of that paint where I know all the sediment has gone to the bottom. And I've got a clean drop or two of paint and put that in my airbrush, and then I can spray it. And I've got my best opportunity to get a good clean spray. So that's a trick. I need to wipe off my brush here before I change colors. And I wanted to point that out because I'd seen that. So I've got a little bit of this straight olive green. It's really dark. It's also a model air paint, so it's still fairly thin. And what I want to do is I basically want to do the same sort of thing. It's like the little bit of light that might wrap around here and hit these guys is going to highlight this upper bit of this square. So I just want to put a little bit of this very dark color. It's got more value than the black that the primer has, just to give it a tiny little bit of something right there. And I may decide that it's a waste of my time because it just doesn't stand out. And if so, I'll just add I'll make a highlight of it by adding some middle stone or something like that. Just enough to give that some value. This is probably way more detail than this little tank needs. Jello shots. The LSD squad. I know you only pick those models because they're tanks. Ilmarin. You're just... What are you doing, man? You're calling me out. Yes, you're right, Ilmarin. I 100% picked that model because it's a tank. God, I love tanks. I mean, I like calves too, don't get me wrong, but man, tanks are my jam. Very much my jam. So yes, Ilmarin, you're right. I don't know. I am going to paint a P-Dot camo model just for you, Cthulhu. I'm not sure I'm going to do an entire army of them. But I will do one just for you at some point. Maybe after I paint the virtual CavCon stuff. All right. Again, not sure that's really worth my time and effort to paint super dark green over black and actually think there's anything happening there that the human eye cares about. I mean, let's face it, Ross is just going to, roll a 12, critical hit this tank and take it off the table like turn 1. So, not sure why I'm bothering to paint all this stuff. But I am, because reasons. And jello shots. I've heard those words before. Ilmarin, I'm not much of a drinker, so I don't honestly know what jello shots are. They sound kind of squishy. But yeah. I think that little tiny bit of highlight is kind of got to where I want it to be. Now on this, right here on this bit, it just feels to me like this little round piece of a turret should be fairly reflective. So I'm just going to take this dirty bone, and I'm just going to try and paint a very tiny little edge highlight right there. And right there. Right there. And try and give it a little crispness. Like there's an edge there that's catching and reflecting the light. A little stronger than the stuff around it. Maybe right here. Up this edge. And up that edge right there. And then right down this. Oh, it's not enough paint. The problem is when you're painting with like a tiny fraction of a drop of paint, it dries out so quick. See, it's too much. I've messed it up. It's all right. We'll just mess up both of them. Yeah, maybe not too bad. And now I can come back in with that glaze where I've kind of gone just a little bit. Let's make sure I got the right color there. Yep. And I could just come back in with that glaze and just kind of knock those guys back down where I was a little ham-handed there, maybe. Right there. Just get something dark because I need a shadow right there to make that look a tiny little bit brighter. All right. Shot of Jello. It's alcohol and Jello in a condiment cup. So you make up some Jello, regular Jello, and you put some alcohol in it, and what you like, or do you make the Jello with the alcohol? I'm not sure how that works. Sounds interesting. Come to CavCon when it's a physical thing. You can teach me all about this stuff. And so I'm coming back in and I'm putting in some tiny little bit brighter highlights, and I'm going smaller. So, I want it to look like this reflection has its own little tiny transition from the highest point out to the midpoint, and then out to the point where the regular color of the tank becomes the shadow, sort of. Oh, that's too much. I did it again. But like I said, we just come back in with the glaze. We kind of clean that up. I can't imagine how real painters, the guys and the ladies, and the non-binaries that are super good painters, when they're doing this, like this excellent, they've got like transitions that are just ridiculous, and they've got hundreds of hours built into them. How do they keep from messing it up? I mean, I've seen people paint like a cloak to look like a tapestry, and the tapestry that they painted on the cloak looks like itself a work of art. I'm like, man, how do you keep from just bumping the wrong way or sneezing or something? Oh my gosh, I can't imagine the amount of work that goes into repairing something like that if you were to mess it up. But that's what artists do, as opposed to me. I am just a hobbyist. I just paint gaming models. Just fun little gaming models. Anybody out there watching WandaVision? Anybody like the MCU stuff that Disney's putting out? I am. My wife and I. It's it's a big deal. We always make time during the weekend to sit down and watch whatever the latest WandaVision show is. And we started Doom Patrol, which she had never watched, and I had never finished. We started that last night just because we couldn't get enough WandaVision, and that is really different. But it's good too. It's just it's very different. What else is going on? We started watching The Watch, which is an adaptation of Terry Pratchett's work. It's very different from I think what his vision was, but it's not a bad show. I enjoy it. Gotta make up a little bit more. My wet palette is not perhaps as wet as it ought to be, but that's okay. Just make up some more. All right, come in and just glazing in some tiny little bits of highlight, almost edge highlighting with some of it, almost. Cthulhu, yeah. I kind of have the same thing. I kind of want to get... So to me, this is the fun part, right? My big struggle is when the model looks meh. And to me, that's... Every model goes through that phase, right? It's that point in time where you look at what you've done and you're like, oh my God, I should just strip this right now. And I'll be honest with you. To me, it feels like every model goes through that phase. And there are some models I have genuinely, without trying to be humble or fishing for a compliment, there are models that I have genuinely said out loud, I'm just going to strip this model. This thing looks terrible. And my friend, oftentimes Tim Bunn, a local painter that I like quite a bit, he will say to me, just keep painting. Just keep going. It'll sort itself out. And he has been righter than he's been wronger. And so you push through to this point, and this is kind of where I like it, because I'm pretty happy with the way this model's coming out. And so now I'm just going in and taking it up another notch, right? I'm taking the things that are working pretty well, and I'm trying to make them work even better. Mr. Kane, Colonel Kane checking in. All right, so for those of you who don't know, and I'm sorry, you're going to hear the same story. The title of this stream should be Old Man Tells the Same Story 50,000 Times, because that's what I'm going to do. Colonel Kane is the person that demoed me my first game of Cav a few years back. And so it's kind of his fault that I'm here doing all this crazy stuff, and I've got all this giant pile of models. And so, I owe him one. He's kind of hard to encounter. He lives in a different part of Kansas than John. And so I usually only get to see him at a convention. We haven't had those lately, so I haven't been able to make him pay for his perfidious crimes that he perpetuated on me. Actually, no, I love Cav, and I'm really happy that Colonel Kane has got me interested in it. He's come down to Tulsa a few times to hang out with a mutual friend of ours, Mr. Ludo, and we've painted models together. He's a sweet guy. I like Colonel Kane a lot. And apparently orange is not his cup of tea. So I'll be happy to bear that burden for you. Orange is one of my favorite colors. I'm a graduate of Oklahoma State University. So not only do I like orange, I also bleed orange, allegedly. So that's what they told me when I graduated. So that's where I got my master's degree. Getting there. Oh man, Cthulhu. Yeah, so ideally, so I love the look of horde armies. Like the Skaven are fantastic models. I mean, especially the bigger pieces, the very unique ones, those big rat ogres. Those things look great. But I'm like you, I can't paint 700 models. I mean, literally, by the time I even come close, the game is gone. It's rotated out. They've retired it and replaced it with something else. And so I like either, for games that have that feel that where you can play extraordinarily wide, I have to play an elite army so that there's only 20 or 30 models I have to paint. Or I just like games that have much smaller model counts, which is one of the ways Colonel Kane was able to suck me into Cav. Dozen models or so. I mean, you could play a lot more if you really want to, but dozen models, 20, 30. A 30 model game, even if you're playing a bunch of tanks, and Cav is a really big game, mostly. And so, yeah, it appeals to me. Other games, like the only other miniature game I'm even really working on right now is Marvel Crisis Protocol. So, like, here's my Captain Marvel that I'm slowly working on. And it's a very small model kind of game. I mean, you literally play with 3 to 7 models on the tabletop at any one point in time. So yeah, I agree with you, Cthulhu. Colonel Kane painting orange it's not really any harder than painting anything else, I don't think. Oh, wait a minute, it's 8:52. All right, I'm going to pause here. I'm not going to make up any more of this stuff. Let me put this lid on here because I'm going to spend the last few minutes talking about my list, playing with my new toys. All right. I think she needs orange hair. Yeah, Colonel Kane. She's going to be kind of a bright blonde. I don't think it'll be orange, but she's going to be a blonde. There'll be some orange in that hair for sure. So speaking of orange, I'm not sure this model has hair, but I think it's coming along pretty good. Again, depending on whether or not we decide to do a decal, I think we're probably 75% done, 80% done here. I need to do some more work on the gray. I need to pick out, I need to clean up my little bit of mistakes, and then I kind of need to come in here and with some glazes and create some stronger transitions here, so these big flat panels aren't all the exact same color. Kind of like this variation that we get here around this turret, where it's kind of a darker color down here where the light would have trouble penetrating. I'm going to do the same sort of thing to some of the gray. We got this cockpit glass we need to tinker with. We need to do something with this turret to make it stand out. And again, it's probably, not turret, I said turret, this hatch here. This hatch is probably bright enough. So instead of really painting a highlight here, I'm going to come back and paint some I'm going to bring the shadows darker so that this thing has more contrast, I guess is the right word. Sort of like we get here, right? So here's this transition. A little bit like this, but maybe not quite so stark in some of these panels up here. But this guy's pretty close to being done. I got to do this piece of glass right here. And like I said, maybe maybe a piece of freehand or a decal or something I have made in my mind. I feel like the back of it is kind of plain, and that doesn't bother me too much, but I probably will come in and I'll just create some highlights and whatnot. Just get a little bit of separation here where there's, it's kind of boring back here. I'll probably make these stand out a little less. I might put some of the green here just to kind of break this back up a little bit. But yeah, it's getting there. It's getting pretty close. All right. Oh yeah, sweet, Elmarin. I'm looking forward to, you're going to throw that up in Discord, I guess, or just let me know where. How do you like the Army Painter Wet Palette? So, first of all, I think the Army Painter Wet Palette is really good. I like the sponges that it comes with them. They're pre-cut. I don't have to mess with anything. Like in terms of making my own. The paper is pretty good. I'm not sure I like their paper better than parchment paper, but it is good and it's already pre-cut. So in general, I like it a lot. It's definitely not waterproof. You can't turn the thing sideways. That little band on top of it doesn't do anything like that. And I like the fact it's got a pretty, it's got a pretty good size surface here. So I made myself one. I don't have it around to show you, but it was pretty small. It was probably about like this size right here. And it just wasn't enough area. And I had I bought a Masterson's one from Hobby Lobby, which is bigger than this, and it was too much. It didn't leave me enough room. So this is a good convenient size. I like the fact that it packs away nicely. Honestly, though, wet pallets, I'm not that good at wet pallets. I feel like I don't get out of them what I see other people get out of them. But I think it's worth the purchase. If you want a wet pallet and you don't want to make your own, it's worth it. If you want to make your own, you can go to Dollar General, Family Dollar, and you can buy everything you need for probably under $6 to make your own little miniature wet pallet. And that's what I think about that. All right. So now let's talk about models. I guess I need to adjust the focus really quickly here. Let me go over here. Because again, I have kind of a meh camera. Where's the focus? There's a focus. Focus is a thing, right? Focus is something you do with cameras, I think. There you are. Is that right? Good enough. Good enough. All right. So got a little bit better focus. So first of all, I didn't realize how gigantically wide these Outlaws are. And I love it. I mean, these things are a giant heap and honk of plastic for a tank. And they got the command broccoli, or whatever you want to call this thing. I don't know if you can make it out. It's I have to pick it up with a pair of tweezers because my claws won't fit it very well. I presume it's some sort of targeting array or something like that. I like the looks of it. It's just, I'm calling it the command broccoli because it looks to me like a giant piece of broccoli. All right. So, like I said, I punch the camera. That's me, Captain Camera Puncher. I was sitting up at Cav HQ this weekend talking to John, trying to brainstorm what to do for a list, which is not my strong point. I usually just pay Ross, and Ross builds me a list. That's a joke, actually, but it's a good joke. It's a running joke. And I always say that at the end of it. So the question is it really a joke? All right. And so I thought to myself, all right, I need to paint models for the JOR. And I need to paint up a force. So why not do the two together? So I picked a model, and I said this earlier, I picked a model from the JOR to paint up as part of my virtual CavCon force. That way when I'm done, I've got a model that we can photograph. Hopefully it'll be good enough. We can photograph it for the JOR. Two birds with one stone, because I'm a smart guy, or at least that's what I tell people. Sometimes they nod as if they agree with me. Sometimes they nod because they're afraid that I'm some crazy man showing them my cab models in the middle of the pharmacy. All right, so I got a fire support squad here, and I'm not going to throw these guys all the way together, but so the fire support squads, basically every squad in Cav, for the most part, I'm going to cause an accident. Hold on. I'm murdering things off the camera. All right, here we go. Finally. Most squads benefit from having access to EST. So, Mad Dog. Okay. So, yeah, you were talking to me. I'm Mad Dog. I totally forgot about that. So here is the Razor, which is a little Malvernus Recon model. It's actually kind of pricey. It's over 300 points. But it comes with ECM and EST. And so, of course, Malvernus squads are 5 model count. So I slapped this together. So I've got 4 fire support tanks who I believe all have targeting computer 1 and a model that can use its EST to get a target lock and share it to these guys, so these guys can maneuver and shoot rather than having to choose of the 3 options: maneuver, shoot, and target lock. Which two do I want to do? He lets them do the two important ones: the move and the shoot. Okay, and so that's going to be a running theme throughout my army. Let's get these guys onto the screen here. I guess I should have thought about it. I adjusted my camera so it's in a slightly different place than it has been in the past. So that's why I'm all confused. So then, of course, that's a fire support squad. So I have to have a primary squad. Rather, a fire support squad is a secondary squad. And there has to be at least, I think there has to be more, equal to or more primaries than secondaries. I'm sure Colonel Kane knows the answer to that. Pretty sure he does. And so, you know me, Ilmarine mentioned it earlier, tanks a lot. And so I got to looking through the Malvernus list, and I noticed there were these wonderful little tanks for 428 points called the Poltergeist. So, how many can I get in a squad? 5, but I need EST. So, you're going to see something very similar here. I'm going to be painting up 4 Poltergeists with another, you called it, another razor to fill that embedded ECM role. Now, EST only works for the squad that a unit is assigned to. So if this guy were a separate, like in a specialist squad, he can't loan his target lock across squads. That's why he's got to be embedded. So there's that guy. Here is Christmas time with my cab models. Christmas time. And so here's their razor. And then this is the one that's multi-part. I'm not going to put this one together because there's too many pieces here. But this is a shadow. So, all right. We decided to use last year's CavCon tournament rules to build these virtual CavCon lists out of. And one of the restrictions in that list, that tournament space, is that the models all have to, rather, you can only have 12 models in a force, all right? So you're limited to a maximum number of 12 models. And so now I've got 10, and so now I need, I guess I am going to assemble this guy. I guess he's not as complicated as I thought he was. So now I need 2 more models, all right? So that's a specialist squad, because that's the only way I can put 2 models in a squad that I know of. And so, yeah. Maybe I should have put these guys together ahead of time. Now I've got 2 shadows. The big thing with shadows is they have decent guided missiles. I think they have 2 medium guided missiles, but they also have APA-2. And APA-2 is, if you deploy it correctly, is effectively +2 to hit for everybody in your force that it applies to. I'm not going to try to put this other shadow together. Or am I? And so now what I've got is I've got my 12 models. I wasn't able to get to the whole 4,500 points. The tournament is a 4,500 point tournament, and because I decided I wanted to run multiples of the same thing, and I wanted to run a lot of tanks, there aren't quite as many options as there are if you were just throw it wide open and run calves. I could find some calves to fit in my force that would allow me to eat up the last few points. So I'm I don't know, 200 or 300 points short of the maximum allowed. But again, I'm only playing for fun, so it doesn't matter to me. It's close. It's going to be a fun force to paint. It's got tons of tanks. It's actually has a chance to be fairly effective. So the highest strength weapon in my force is 5. I've got strength 5 here. I think their guided missiles are strength 5. But basically, this is my attack section. So these are my big boys. They have 4 strength 5 MRACs, I believe. And so what if I run into an Emperor or something with a lot of armor? Shadows have tag. That's a good question. I don't have their stat card in front of me. And you're right, Colonel. Just tanks. And it's not just tanks. But it is primarily tanks because, God, I love tanks. Pardon me, I had to have a drink of water. So, how am I going to deal with high armor? Okay, so I've got these Poltergeists with their 4 strength 5 MRACs, okay? So I can, I believe they have targeting computer 1. And what I can do is I can have this fellow get a target lock, share it via EST to this guy. This guy maneuvers and decides to fire. He decides to salvo fire. So now I'm firing at +1 because of my target lock. Because the target lock allows me to turn on my targeting computer. I'm firing a salvo, so I've got I've got 4 weapon systems, so I get a +3 to my salvo. So now I'm firing at a total of +4. And if I can get the shadows APA to affect this shot right here, I've got another +2. So that's really a +6. So I mean, it's only a single shot of a strength 5 weapon, but it's effectively rolling kind of like it was strength 11, because it's 5, 6 for targeting computer, 9 for salvo fire, APA 2 is 10, 11. Now, that's not actually the way the rules work, but I mean, you can think of it that way to kind of get a sense. So I have the ability to at least reasonably expect to be able to put a point or 2 of damage onto an armor 9 model. And then you just have to hope you can do it often enough, assuming that taking down the armor 9 model is important to winning your game. You have to hope you can get him down to the point where he's not armor 9 all the time, and then eventually you can stop salvo firing and fire at him 4 times and hope to, get 4 points of single damage on him at the same time. Hey, thanks, Colonel Kane. Yeah, so the shadow has tag, which will allow it to move and fire its guided missiles without needing a target lock by virtue of the fact that it has tag. So again, it's a fairly cohesive force. I'm 100% certain that Ross's and Todd's are going to be way more effective than mine. Probably Hugh's as well. Hugh, I don't know what he's building. You go over and look on Discord. He put together this model that he glued like 4 giant rocket packs on. I'm not sure what model that is, but it's scary as bleep. I'm looking forward to seeing what his thought process is. Check it out and ask him some questions. But yeah, so here's what we got. We got, models to clean up, mold lines to take care of. Maybe it looks like a little bit of a gap filling where they popped this thing off the sprue. They tore out the back edge of that guided missile rack. Got a little repair to do there. But yeah, so I'm going to be painting these guys out, getting them cleaned up and assembled and painted. And now we come to the painting part. Oh yeah, you're right. It is a Cyclops. Thank you very much, Ilmarin. It still doesn't mean anything to me. I don't have all the units memorized. But how to paint these guys? Ross's scheme says purple, yellow, and black accents. So I'm looking at this outlaw, and I'm like, what kind of purple can I put on here? So I mean, I've got some good deep dark purples. Can I reach one of those guys? Not really. And I don't want to fall over. I'm trying to climb up there and get a model off the display shelf that has some purple in it. But so I kind of don't want to go. I don't mind a deep purple, but I don't want to bring the highlights up with white and end up with a pastel-y purple. I have some Tau for 40K that I tried to paint with purple and white, using white to highlight purple, and they don't look bad, but they're very pastel-y, and I don't want this to go that direction. So my thought is, I saw some models that were purple that had really kind of bright magenta highlights. Base coat yellow, purple stripes, black edges, and highlights. Go tacky, lol. No, maybe not. I don't want to paint a lot of yellow. I mean, yellow is paintable. I think I can paint yellow. I kind of want these guys to be purpley pink, pinky purple, maybe in their highlights. But I don't know. Again, I'm going to have to drag out a test model and just do some experiments. And I think so when I'm painting up a model for the JOR, so like this guy, this particular unit has not a paint scheme, but a color combination, right? And so even though I doubted him at first, Ross was 100% right on this color combination works. And so I trust him. I just got to figure out a way to take purple and yellow with black and make it work. And in my head, I'm just struggling to see it. So like I said, I'm going to drag out one of my off-brand tanks and conduct some experiments. Teal goes all right with the dark purple. Teal. Help me. What unit is the commander? All right, well, let's back up to the first question. Teal. Help me understand what teal looks like, Colonel Kane. Is that a bluish green? I'm not sure what you mean by teal. Secondly, by the way, Colonel Kane, are you on our Discord? And if not, why not? Because you need to come and post up a picture of something teal for me to look at so I know what you're talking about. And what unit is the commander? All right, so I think when you say what unit is the commander, in the past in CavCon tournaments, you were given like a free ace. The ace was your commander. He was a target, like an objective in the scenario. Your enemy could score points for capture or killing your commander. I don't think we get the free ace anymore. We might still need to designate the commander. I'll have to go back and read the rules a little closer. That's a good question. Well, it's certainly not going to be one of the recon units. So it's clearly going to be either an outlaw or a poltergeist. So what do you think, Colonel Kane? I mean, the object is to... In the previous editions of the tournament, people scored extra points for destroying your commander. So what unit am I going to paint the other tank in? I intend to paint these all in one scheme. These gray guys are all going to be in one paint scheme. You weren't talking about this guy, right? This guy has nothing to do with this unit, by the way, just to make sure we're on the same page here. This is just a model for the JOR. So I'm not, again, I apologize for being dense. I'm not quite sure what you're asking me there, Colonel Kane. Go tacky. Yes. So this guy right here, you're talking about this guy? He has nothing to do with this army. This is just a model, an unreleased model that I was painting up because it's going to be in the JOR. And I've just been painting it on Mondays to kind of show, to have some content and show people what's going on. This is a completely separate project. This is my virtual CavCon force, which apparently is going to be purple in some variation of colors. But seriously, Colonel Kane, come over and join us on Discord, and let's talk about this. I would really appreciate your opinion, not only on the paint scheme, but also, maybe on like some tactics and strategy. Oh yeah, so this guy is a particular unit. I don't remember the name off the top of my head. I'd have to look it up. Sorry. And one of these guys, if I use the purple paint scheme, is a particular unit. I think it's also open. I think I could make up a paint scheme for these guys, but I have to double check the notes. I'm not 100% certain. And I'm glad to hear you're on Discord. Yeah, hit me up over there. The show's basically over. And I'd love to chit chat with you some more. So maybe we could continue this over on Discord. I'd like to get your feedback and your input from all of you, to be honest with you. But now it's time to run through our closing monologue. Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me. It's fun to hobby with my buddies, and that's who you guys are. You're basically my cab buddies. 2, tomorrow's Terrain Tuesday with John, so let's hang out with John tomorrow if you can. Wednesday, 2 old guys get together and talk about stuff. That would be me and John. That's basically what that show's about. And then Saturday, hopefully Mr. Crisp Lewis will be feeling better. He didn't stream this last Saturday because he was ill. I hope he's feeling much, much better, and I hope to get a chance to see him on Saturday doing some 3D modeling. And then the world turns right back around, and we're back here the Monday after that doing more hobby hangout stuff. Hopefully maybe finishing up the Cossack, and then starting to, maybe we'll have some ideas about what to do with these fellows. So that's what's going on. Like I said, Ross and Todd and Hugh and myself are trying to chat up virtual CavCon quite a bit on Facebook and the Reaper forums and Discord. So if you have the time or the interest, or just please participate so we can generate some more conversation. More noise equals good noise. Hang out with us, chit chat, have a good time. But here's perhaps the most important thing. Be good to everybody. When you leave this stream, go and smile and say something nice to somebody. You run into a stranger, give them a compliment. Just nod. Be polite. Hold the door. Buy them a drink if you have the opportunity. Just make the world a tiny little bit better around you. And if we all do that, it'll add up. That's my take. All right, folks. Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. Have a good evening. Bye.